Let me begin with a hard truth. You are never going to feel like it. You will not feel like waking up early, like studying that extra hour, like hitting the gym after a long day, or like grinding on that project when your friends are out having fun. And if you're waiting for the perfect moment when motivation strikes, I promise you, you'll be waiting for the rest of your life. The world rewards execution, not intention. It's supposed to be a burden to a degree. Your goals don't care about your mood, and success will not wait politely at your doorstep until you're comfortable enough to open the door. The only way forward is learning the skill. Yes, the skill of forcing yourself to do what must be done regardless of how you feel. When you master this, everything changes. You become reliable to yourself. You develop a power that very few people ever tasted, the ability to take action on command. That's the difference between people who dream and people who achieve. Today, I'm going to show you how to build this inner strength, how to push past resistance, and how to force yourself into the life you say you want. When people talk about achieving their goals, the word you hear most often is motivation. We live in a culture obsessed with motivation. We watch highlight reels, listen to hype music, scroll through inspirational quotes, and hope that one spark of excitement will finally push us to do the work. But here's the reality: motivation is fleeting. It's like a wave that rises high but crashes just as quickly. You cannot build a life, a career, or a dream on something so temporary. That is why discipline must replace motivation as your foundation. Discipline is the decision to act whether or not you feel like it. Motivation might get you started once or twice, but discipline keeps you moving every single day. Think about it. How many times have you felt motivated to start a new habit? Maybe exercising, writing, or studying, only to quit after a week when the initial excitement faded. That's motivation failing you. Discipline doesn't rely on excitement. It doesn't care if the weather is bad, if you're tired, or if you're in the mood. Discipline is a contract with yourself that says, I will do this because I said I would. The difference between people who reach their goals and those who don't is not talent, luck, or intelligence. It is discipline. The disciplined person runs when it rains, writes when it's inconvenient, practices when it's boring, and prepares when no one else is watching, while others wait for the perfect emotional state. Disciplined people simply act. They build momentum not through inspiration, but through consistent repetition. Over time, their discipline becomes habit, and their habits create results that look like luck to everyone else. Here's the trap most people fall into. They assume that because they don't feel motivated, something must be wrong with them. They believe successful people wake up every day filled with energy and excitement, ready to charge into their goals. That's a lie. The truth is, the most successful people in any field feel lazy, tired, and uninspired at times. The only difference is they have trained themselves not to listen to those feelings. They rely on discipline, not mood. Discipline is a muscle, just like lifting weights. The more you practice it, the stronger it becomes. At first, forcing yourself to wake up early or stick to a routine feels like a battle. Your mind resists, your body complains, and everything inside of you screams for comfort. But each time you push through, you build mental strength. You're teaching your brain that you are in control, not your fleeting emotions. Eventually, discipline becomes second nature. You don't debate with yourself anymore. You simply act. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wake up wondering whether you feel motivated to do it. You just do it because it's part of your daily life. Imagine if pursuing your goals felt that automatic. That's what discipline creates. It removes the endless cycle of negotiating with yourself and replaces it with certainty. You become dependable, not just to others, but most importantly to yourself. Motivation is nice when it's there, but it cannot be trusted. Discipline is different. Discipline shows up every day, whether you're excited or exhausted, whether you're winning or struggling. It is the bridge between desire and achievement, the key that unlocks every goal. If you want to accomplish anything meaningful, stop chasing the spark of motivation and start training the muscle of discipline. It will carry you further than you ever imagined. The ability to command yourself is one of the rare and most powerful traits a person can develop. Most people live at the mercy of their moods. If they feel energized, they act. If they feel tired, they quit. If they feel inspired, they push forward. If they feel lazy, they surrender to procrastination. Their lives are governed not by intention, but by emotion. The problem with this way of living is that emotions are unpredictable. They shift with the weather, with sleep, with stress, with distractions. If your actions are tied to feelings, your results will always be inconsistent. The only way to break free from this roller coaster is to learn the power of self-command. Self-command is the ability to tell yourself what to do and then actually do it without debate, without hesitation, without bargaining. It's making a decision and following through as if it were law. When you develop this ability, you no longer depend on external forces to push you. You no longer wait for the right mood or the right environment. You become your own source of authority, and that makes you unstoppable. Think of an army commander giving orders. When a command is given, soldiers don't argue or ask if they feel like it. They execute. That same level of authority must exist within you. Your goals are the mission. Your mind is the commander. Your actions are the troops. When you say, go, you go. This is the essence of self-command. Without it, you drift. With it, you create order out of chaos and progress out of stagnation. Many people confuse self-command with willpower, but they are not the same. Willpower is a limited resource. It tires out when you resist temptation or push through discomfort. Self-command, however, is built on identity. It's deciding that when you give yourself an order, it is non-negotiable. It doesn't matter if you're tired, bored, or scared. Once the decision is made, action follows. This internal authority doesn't drain you the way willpower does. It strengthens you because it reinforces the identity of someone who can be trusted to follow through. The lack of self-command is why people get trapped in cycles of procrastination. They say, I'll start tomorrow, and then tomorrow never comes. They promise themselves they'll work hard, but then they negotiate with every distraction that appears. Each time they break their own word, they weaken their self-trust. Over time, their brain learns that their promises are empty. That's why goals remain dreams for so many people. Not because they lack ability, but because they lack the authority to command themselves into consistent action. The good news is that self-command can be trained. Start small. Give yourself one clear order a day and follow through. It could be as simple as, I will wake up when my alarm rings without hitting snoozes, or I will write one page before I go to bed. Each time you obey your own command, you strengthen the connection between intention and action. You're teaching yourself that your word matters, that when you decide, you deliver. Over time, these small acts of obedience to yourself compound into massive personal power. The ultimate freedom in life comes not from doing whatever you feel like, but from being able to do what must be done regardless of how you feel. That's the paradox. Discipline and self-command, which seem like restriction, actually create freedom. Because when you can command yourself, nothing can hold you back. You no longer waste years waiting for motivation or searching for the perfect conditions. You act on demand. You become the kind of person who sets a goal and achieves it, not because it was easy, but because you learn to lead yourself. Big goals often feel overwhelming because we imagine them as one massive leap instead of a series of small, manageable steps. This is why so many people give up before they even start. They look at the mountain in front of them and convince themselves it's impossible to climb. But the secret to achievement is not in giant leaps. It's in consistent small wins repeated day after day until momentum takes over. Small daily wins may look insignificant on the surface, but they are the building blocks of greatness. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior. Once you are moving, it's easier to keep moving. Each small victory creates proof in your mind that you are capable, that progress is possible, and that your effort matters. This proof fuels confidence, and confidence fuels action. A single push-up today may not transform your body, but doing that push-up daily, then 2, then 10, compounds into undeniable results. The same principle applies to studying, building a business, saving money, or developing any skill. It's not the size of each action that matters. It's the consistency of showing up. The challenge is that small wins rarely feel satisfying in the moment. We live in a culture addicted to instant gratification. We want results now, not later. When we don't see immediate payoff, we assume our effort is pointless. That's why most people quit. But what they fail to realize is that consistency is like planting seeds. At first, the soil looks unchanged, and you question whether anything is happening. But under the surface, roots are forming one day. With enough patience and care, those roots break through the ground and growth becomes visible. Small daily wins work the same way. Invisible progress, building into visible transformation. Another reason small wins are powerful is that they lower resistance. The human brain hates overwhelming tasks. If you tell yourself you need to write an entire book, your mind resists because it feels impossible. But if you tell yourself you'll write one paragraph today, the resistance melts away. By lowering the entry barrier, you create momentum, and often you end up doing more than you plan. This strategy flips the psychology of productivity. Instead of dreading tasks, you begin them with ease, and once started, action breeds more action. Consistency through small wins also trains identity. Every time you follow through on a small action, you reinforce the belief that you are the kind of person who keeps promises to yourself. These micro confirmations shape your self-image. A person who runs for 5 minutes daily begins to see themselves as a runner. A person who writes 1 page daily begins to see themselves as a writer. Identity is far more powerful than motivation because once you adopt an identity, your actions naturally align with it. Small wins create this shift without the pressure of perfection. Compound effect of small daily wins is astonishing over time. 1% better each day doesn't sound like much, but compounded over a year, it leads to exponential growth. Imagine learning one new skill, saving $1, or doing 1 push-up each day. At first, it's almost invisible progress. But given months and years, the difference is enormous. The people you admire, the ones who look like overnight successes, are usually the ones who accumulated years of small wins in private before the world ever noticed. The truth is, greatness is not built in giant heroic moments. It's built in the unglamorous discipline of daily repetition. Small wins create momentum. Momentum creates habits, and habits create results. If you want to achieve any goal, stop obsessing over the big outcome and start stacking small victories. Do the tiny, consistent actions that feel almost too simple. Over time, those small wins will compound into unstoppable momentum, and the mountain that once looked impossible will be behind you. Excuses are the most seductive lies we tell ourselves. They feel comforting in the moment, like a soft blanket that shields us from discomfort and responsibility. When faced with a challenge, it is easy to say, I don't have time, or I'm too tired, or I'll start tomorrow. These statements sound reasonable, and that's what makes them so dangerous. They give us permission to stay where we are instead of stepping into the effort and discomfort required for growth. The truth is that excuses are not external obstacles. They are internal negotiations designed to protect our comfort zone. And every time you accept one, you trade progress for temporary relief. What people often don't realize is that excuses are stories we create, not facts we must obey. Two people can face the same circumstances. Lack of time, lack of resources, lack of energy, yet one finds a way while the other finds a reason. The difference lies not in conditions, but in mindset. Excuses disguise themselves as logic, but they are really just avoidance dressed in rational language. They whisper in your ear, convincing you that waiting is safer, easier, and more practical than acting now. If you let them, these whispers grow into chains that keep you trapped in mediocrity. Detaching from excuses requires brutal honesty with yourself. It means calling out your own patterns and refusing to accept your own lies when you say, I don't have time. Ask yourself what you are really prioritizing instead. Everyone has 24 hours. The difference is how they choose to use them. When you say, I'm too tired, ask yourself if you're truly exhausted or simply avoiding discomfort. More often than not, the energy is there. It's just being buried under resistance. By questioning your own excuses, you expose them for what they are: convenient shields, not unbreakable barriers. Another way to break free from excuses is to shift from focusing on conditions to focusing on control. Conditions will never be perfect. There will always be distractions, obstacles, and reasons why no isn't the right time. But waiting for ideal circumstances is a trap because they never arrive. Instead, Focus on what you can control in this moment. Even if you can't do everything, you can always do something. Taking imperfect action is infinitely more powerful than making perfect excuses. Small steps compound, but excuses only delay. The cost of living in excuses is not just missed opportunities, it's erosion of self-trust. Each time you let yourself off the hook, you reinforce the belief that your own words cannot be trusted. Over time, this weakens your confidence and convinces you that you are incapable of change. Excuses don't just keep you stuck, they slowly destroy your belief in yourself. On the other hand, rejecting excuses builds self-respect. When you hold yourself accountable and act even when it's uncomfortable, you prove to yourself that you are reliable. That proof builds unshakable confidence. It is important to understand that everyone makes excuses. What separates achievers from dreamers is how quickly they cut them off. High performers recognize the excuses forming in their minds, but instead of indulging them, they push through. They act not because it is easy, but because they know excuses are poison to progress. By making this a habit, they train themselves to move forward, even in the presence of resistance. At the end of the day, excuses are choices. They are voluntary prisons you place yourself in. The moment you decide to reject them, you unlock freedom. You gain control over your time, your energy, and your results. Detaching from excuses doesn't mean life becomes easier. It means you stop lying to yourself and start living with clarity. It's the moment you stop asking, can I? And start declaring, I will. And from that point on, growth becomes inevitable. Growth does not come wrapped in comfort. It does not arrive in the form of easy routines, predictable days, or tasks that require no stretch. Growth is born in the very places we resist, the moments that feel uncomfortable, painful, or uncertain. Yet most people spend their lives running from these moments. They choose the path of least resistance, seeking convenience and avoiding anything that threatens their comfort zone. But here is the paradox: the more you chase comfort, the weaker you become, and the more you embrace discomfort, the stronger you grow. Every worthwhile achievement requires discomfort. Think about training your body. Muscles only grow when they are pushed to the point of stress, when they are torn slightly so they can rebuild stronger. If you only ever lifted weights that felt easy, your body would never change. The same principle applies to your mind and your life. The discomfort of learning a difficult skill, of starting a business, of having hard conversations, or of taking risks. These are the workouts for your character. Without them, you remain stagnant. With them, you expand into someone greater than before. The problem is that our brains are wired for safety, not growth. The mind interprets discomfort as danger, urging us to retreat back into the familiar. That instinct kept our ancestors alive, but in the modern world, it often keeps us small. Discomfort is no longer a sign of life threatening danger. It is a sign that you are entering a new level of challenge. Learning to reinterpret discomfort as progress rather than pain is one of the most powerful mindset shifts you can make. One way to practice this is by deliberately leaning into small discomforts every day. Wake up earlier than you want to. Take a cold shower. Speak up when it feels easier to stay silent. Push yourself to do one more repetition at the gym. Each of these actions trains you to tolerate discomfort rather than avoid it. Over time, what once felt unbearable becomes normal, and what was once normal feels too easy. This gradual exposure expands your capacity, and suddenly challenges that used to intimidate you no longer have power over you. Discomfort also builds resilience. When you step into situations that stretch you, you prove to yourself that you can handle more than you thought. That proof compounds. The next time life throws unexpected challenges at you, you don't crumble as easily because you've built the habit of facing difficulty head on. In a world where most people retreat at the first sign of struggle, resilience becomes your competitive edge. Avoiding discomfort, on the other hand, leads to regret. The job you never applied for because you feared rejection, the dream you never pursued because it felt too risky, the skill you never learned because it was hard. All of these missed opportunities stack up. Comfort seems pleasant in the short term, but in the long term, it suffocates your potential. Discomfort seems painful in the short term, but in the long term, it liberates you. It's supposed to be a burden to a degree. If you want to achieve your goals, you must stop interpreting discomfort as a stop sign and start treating it as a green light. It means you're moving in the right direction. It means you're stretching into growth. Every time you step into discomfort, you're not just working toward your goal, you're reshaping who you are. And that transformation is the real prize. The life you want is always on the other side of discomfort. The sooner you stop running from it and start embracing it, the sooner you unlock your true strength. Growth doesn't ask you to feel ready or comfortable. It demands that you step into the fire and trust that you'll come out forward stronger. One of the most powerful shifts you can make in life is changing how you see yourself. Most people try to achieve goals by forcing themselves into temporary behaviors without ever upgrading their identity. They tell themselves, I want to lose weight, but deep down they still see themselves as someone who hates exercise. They say, I want to start a business, but they still carry the identity of an employee waiting for instructions. They want the results, but they haven't become the kind of person who naturally produces those results. Real change doesn't come from willpower alone. It comes from shifting identity. When you identify as a kind of a person who does what it takes, your actions follow automatically. If you see yourself as an athlete, you don't have to argue with yourself about going for a run. It's simply what you do. If you see yourself as a disciplined individual, you don't debate whether to keep promises. You honor them because that's who you are. Identity creates standards, and standards drive behavior. The question isn't just what do I want to achieve, but who do I need to become to achieve it? Waiting for the right time is a trap people fall into because they think they need external conditions to change before they can act. But the truth is that transformation begins the moment you choose a new identity. You don't wait until you're successful to start seeing yourself as successful. You begin embodying that mindset now. Every small action aligned with that identity reinforces it, like stacking bricks to build a foundation. Over time, your identity becomes so solid that your habits feel automatic. This is why people who rely on motivation often fail. Motivation says, do this when you feel like it. Identity says, do this because it's who you are. Motivation fades, but identity endures. Once you fully believe you are a certain type of person, you act in alignment with it almost effortlessly. For example, a smoker trying to quit who says, I'm trying to stop smoking, is reinforcing the identity of a smoker. But the person who says, I don't smoke, has already shifted identity, and their actions begin to align with that truth. It's supposed to be a burden to a degree. Shifting identity doesn't mean pretending to be someone you're not. It means deciding who you want to be and backing it with action. Each time you choose discipline over comfort, you cast a vote for your new identity. Each time you act in alignment with your vision, you strengthen it. Identity is built in the small, repeated moments of alignment, not in one dramatic transformation. Of course, there will be days when you slip, when old patterns try to pull you back. The key is not perfection, but persistence. Every time you return to your chosen identity, you weaken the grip of the old one. Over time, the old version of yourself loses its hold, and the new version becomes your natural default. The people who achieve the most in life are not necessarily the smartest or the most talented. They are the ones who made an identity shift. They stopped saying, I'm someone who wants this, and started saying, I'm someone who does this. The distinction is subtle, but the impact is enormous. If you want to reach your goals, stop waiting for the perfect moment and start embodying the identity of the person who would achieve them. Act as if you already are that person, and with repetition, you will become them. Identity shapes destiny, and the moment you shift who you are, you change what you can achieve. At the beginning, forcing yourself to take action feels heavy. It feels like dragging your body through mud, pushing against resistance that seems overwhelming. Every fiber of your being screams to stay comfortable, to delay, to negotiate with yourself. This is why so many people quit early. They mistake the initial struggle for a permanent state. But what they don't realize is that force is only temporary. The very act of forcing yourself repeatedly and consistently transforms into something far more powerful: freedom. When you first begin to build discipline, it feels unnatural. waking up burdened to a degree, waking up earlier than you want, doing the work when you'd rather relax, saying no to distractions. All of it feels like punishment. But as you continue, the actions that once required massive effort begin to feel normal. What once felt unbearable becomes routine. The resistance fades, and the behaviors that once demanded force turn into habits. This is the great reward. The pain of forcing yourself is short term, but the freedom it creates lasts a lifetime. Freedom comes from reliability. When you can trust yourself to act on command, you are no longer controlled by mood, temptation, or circumstance. You don't need to wait for motivation or ideal conditions. You move when it's time to move. That reliability frees you from the chaos of inconsistency. Instead of riding the unpredictable wave of emotions, you become grounded, stable, unshakable. That stability is true freedom because you are no longer enslaved by the ups and downs of your feelings. Think about the person who never forces themselves. They live trapped in cycles of procrastination, guilt, and regret. Every day is a negotiation, and every decision is exhausting. They wait for inspiration, but inspiration rarely comes. They want freedom, but ironically, their refusal to apply force keeps them chained to inaction. Compare that to the person who forces themselves daily. At first, their days are tough, but soon they build habits, and habits don't require debate or decision. They run automatically. The disciplined person, once bound by effort, is now liberated by routine. This is why forcing yourself is not about punishment. It is about liberation. It's about doing the hard thing now so the rest of your life becomes easier. Forcing yourself to save money today creates financial freedom tomorrow. Forcing yourself to exercise today creates physical freedom tomorrow. Forcing yourself to learn today creates intellectual and professional freedom tomorrow. Every moment of forced action is an investment in future ease. The pain is temporary, but the payoff compounds. There's also a deeper freedom that comes from self-respect. Every time you force yourself to follow through, you prove to yourself that your word matters. That proof builds unshakable confidence. You stop doubting your ability to change because you've built evidence that you can. And when you trust yourself, you no longer need to rely on anyone else to push you. That independence is true freedom, the kind that no one can give or take away. So when you feel the weight of resistance pressing against you, remember this force is not forever. It is the bridge. On one side is the life you say you want, and on the other side is the life you are currently living. Force is how you cross that bridge. The first steps are hard, but each step gets lighter until one day you look back and realize that what once required force now flows with ease. And that ease, that freedom, is the reward reserved for those who had the courage to push themselves when it mattered most.